Our text is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 3 and 4. Probably a pretty common text for a men's meeting, but let's read it together. It says, "Suffer hardship with me as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No soldier in active service entangles himself in the affairs of everyday life so that he may please the one who enlisted him as a soldier." It's coming in the book of 2 Timothy, which is the Apostle Paul writing a letter to Timothy. Timothy was like a younger mentee of Paul's. He was always a son in the faith, really. Paul loved Timothy. Paul knew 2 Timothy was probably the last letter that we know that the Apostle Paul wrote. So of all his epistles, 2 Timothy is the last one. He's about to die. And so this is his last connection that we have with Timothy. He sends this one. And he says to them, "Suffer hardship with me." He's in a Roman prison when he's writing this, as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. And he says that it's interesting to just that parallel. This is why it kind of resonates with men. I think the idea of being a soldier and following Jesus, being a soldier for Christ. Sometimes you'll see it on like the back of a biker gang. I guess they're not a gang, a motorcycle club. It'll say, soldiers for Christ or whatever, right? It's kind of like an appealing thing for a lot of men to connect ourselves to that idea of warfare, of being a soldier, of following Jesus. It's interesting that he says here that a soldier doesn't entangle himself in the affairs of everyday life because he has a mission. His mission is to please the one who enlisted him as a soldier. And when you are a soldier, you have to kind of make that decision. In the United States, our soldiers, they take an oath on the Constitution to uphold the Constitution from enemies foreign and domestic, right? And so they're committing themselves to this thing, and they're committing themselves to risk their lives to do it. The mission is so central, the mission is so important. When you enlist, you're saying, I'm committing myself to this, everything I have. And the military will hold you to it too, right? They don't, if you're in boot camp or you're out and you want mommy, sorry. That's not one of the options. And so there's a lot of things in life where, man, you can back out of it. The military, they make it pretty tough for you to get out. And he says here up front, you got to endure hardship. There's some real difficulties that come with that kind of sacrifice, that kind of level. You think about the guys out there eating MREs and sleeping on rocks and braving the elements and pushing themselves to the limits and the mental toughness that's required to be a good soldier, right? I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure that you guys, especially you guys in here who have served, I'm sure you could tell us stories about guys who were not good soldiers, who didn't pull their weight. But he's saying if you want to be a good soldier of Jesus Christ, then you gotta be the kind of person who's willing to suffer, who's willing to go through the challenges of what it means to be a Christian. A good soldier requires discipline and self-denial. The same things actually that is required for faithful Christianity. Jesus said in Matthew 16:24, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." Self-denial is at the center of what it means to be a Christian. When you say, I remember this chart that Pastor Dave used, and he actually stole it. I came to find out later on, but it's pretty common. But he said, it's like when you get saved, there's this chair, or think about a circle, concentric circle, where you're in the middle, and all of the stuff in your life revolves around you. And becoming a Christian is like introducing a second circle, and now your goal is to get everything that revolves around you over to revolve around Jesus, who's in this circle, right? That's what it means to be a Christian. It means to deny yourself, to take up your cross to follow Jesus, to give up your life for the sake of his purposes and his will. And so to be a Christian says, God, I'm not about my mission, I'm about your mission. I'm about following you and obeying you. When you're living for yourself, you do what's best for you. There's going to be lots of times in life where you're going to be challenged. The challenge is between, do I do what I want to do? Do I do what Jesus wants to do? Do I do what's right? Or do I do what's convenient for me? There's going to be times in your life, and you know this, that it would be way easier for you to shut your mouth and just be quiet. It'd be way easier for you just to let things go and not worry about it, not speak up. Yet Jesus says, if you're ashamed of me before men, I'll be ashamed of you before my heavenly Father. So there's certain things that, man, when we're living for ourselves come easy and convenient, but when we're living for Jesus are challenging, and they could include suffering. Paul here says we have to order our affections and priorities. A good soldier, when he's called to duty, he doesn't say, well, actually, this is not a convenient time for me. It's my anniversary this week, and I got to take my wife out. No, man, when you're called to duty, you go. There's a stories, you've probably heard about these stories, but they're absolutely crazy about the Japanese holdouts after World War II. These are guys who got placed on islands in the South Pacific, and they said, look, your job here is to man this station. You do not give up. And one of the things that the Japanese had going for them is they're a big honor culture. And so, man, when you say you're going to do something, when you commit to doing it, it is, you'd rather die than break your commitment. The problem was that as the Pacific Fleet advanced and we kind of kept getting victories in the Pacific, the communication got disrupted. We'd take out radio towers, and there's guys that were on islands that, man, they lost connection with home base. Okay, so they didn't have any more radio contact, and so, but that didn't change the mission. Their mission was still hold the fort. And so there's guys in the Philippines and these islands that there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of islands. They said, man, this is where you go. And they had built tunnels, and they were good to hide in, all this kind of stuff. Well, the war ended. Japan surrendered. We dropped the bombs. Japan surrendered. And these guys didn't get the memo. And so you'd hear these stories that would pop up of these guys making raids in villages 2 years after the war, 3 years after the war, 4 years after the war. And they started to try to connect with these guys because they realized what was happening. They realized these guys thought the war was still going on. And so they're still fighting the battle. And so they would send out, radio transmissions saying the war is over. And they'd broadcast, Japanese leaders saying, listen, give up your arms. We've come to peace with our enemies and the war is over. These guys thought it was propaganda. They didn't believe it. They weren't falling for it. There were so many of these, but one of the most radical ones is 28 years and 210 days after the formal end of World War II in March 1974, Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda surrendered on Lunbang after holding out on the island from December 1944 with Akatsu, Shimada, and Kokozu. Onoda refused to surrender until he was relieved of duty by his former commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, who was flown in to Lunbang to formally relieve Onoda. The guy said, unless you send Major whatever, Japanese name, I'm not surrendering my post. That's the guy who told me to stay here until it's over? Okay, we got to go find this 80-year-old guy, fly him to Lunbang, wherever that is, tell this guy you're relieved of duty. He's like, okay, fine, now I'll do it. That is the kind of commitment that a soldier, right? An honorable soldier, a good soldier, that's the kind of radical commitment that he was willing to give himself to. Well, God expects a similar kind of commitment from us. And yet, how easy is it for us to get off mission? How many people in this room could honestly say you have the kind of integrity, the kind of commitment, the kind of faithfulness that would not be put to shame by this Onoda guy, Hiroo? There's so many things that are just geared to try to get us off mission, to try to get us off course, to try to get us off of what it is that God has called us to. This last week, we had a painful reminder of what happens when you let down your guard. Right? This whole Hamas situation in Israel, whatever else it is a massive security failure. It is a massive security failure on the part of the Israelis, on the part of the U.S. The fact that you could get 4,000, 5,000 Hamas jihadis to coordinate all at once, to fire the rockets, to paraglide in, to get on boats, to get on motorcycles, to break holes in these lines, and nobody knew it was going to happen? Well, like, where's the Mossad guy who's like, oh yeah, very good, I'll be there, I'll be ready on the beach, and he's like, hey, home base, it's happening tonight, right? How come that didn't happen? How come there wasn't like some kind of paying attention to prepare? Like the intelligence service for the Israelis and the U.S., supposedly, the Egyptians gave them some insight and somehow the ball got dropped there, but that's a massive failure. And I don't pretend to know all about the Israeli security apparatus and all the things they have going for them, but I do suspect that they let down their guard because there's all this political infighting in Israel. They took their eye off the ball of what their actual existential threat was, and they just got caught up doing a bunch of other stuff. And right now we're paying a tremendous price for it. It's a reminder of how easy it is to take your eye off the ball, how easy it is to get off mission, to just veer off course, to kind of, for whatever reason, start taking it easy or start getting distracted or start paying attention to the wrong thing that God would have you pay attention to. You know, as a Christian, we know that we're part of a spiritual battle. We know there's three forces that are coming against us. The Bible says there's three powerful forces that are conspiring to derail us, that are colluding to take us out of God's will and to keep us from accomplishing our mission. These three forces kind of cover everything that's against us. They're these broad categories. I don't have a lot of time to go into tonight, but it's the devil, it's the world, and it's your flesh. Okay, these are pretty much the three categories the Bible gives us of those things that are working against you, and they're working against every single man in this room. They're working against you 24/7 to try to derail your life, to try to keep you from fulfilling what it is that God has for you. Our flesh, most of us are pretty familiar with it. It's those internal desires and lusts and the ways that we're so easily given to sin, we so easily given to temptation. So that's a big part. We wrestle with that every day. We're pretty familiar with it. There's also the world, which is all the world's thinking, the world's structures, the world's systems that all want you to focus on something other than the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. They want to get you to settle for something else. And then there's a spiritual enemy that we all have. We just call it the devil, but the devil has lots of demons, and there's a whole, spiritual world out there. A lot of times, I've seen people err on two different ways with the devil. Either people pay no attention to the devil and they're totally oblivious to the spiritual realities around us, or everything's the devil. Satan made me do it. I told you guys that story. I used to be a loss prevention agent, and the first guy I ever arrested had this full-on crying, fall apart thing in my office after I arrested him. He's just like, the devil, he tempted me. It was a weird situation for me because I wasn't really a believer. But he was like, no, man, you saw the book and you took it. Like, you stole it. Like, it's straightforward. This is not like rocket science. You don't need to find some scary devil to blame for this situation. It's pretty straightforward. But like I said, I think I said this recently on Sunday, he actually was on to something. There is a spiritual reality there, and all those three things work together. All those three things work in order to try to work against us. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. It says, be ready, be prepared. And I just want to just stop the message for a second. I want to just ask you. This is a rhetorical, don't answer. Dude, are you on the alert? Are you sober-minded about this? Are you aware of your place in a supernatural battle for the destiny of the world, for the kingdom of God? I'm not trying to put the whole thing on your shoulders, but just for your own part of life, you are in the middle of a battle. Do you feel like you're sober-minded about that? Are you conscious in your life and aware of Satan roaring around like a prowling lion, seeking someone he can devour? How conscious are you of that in your life? When you wake up in the morning, are you like, all right, let's get it on? The title of my sermon this morning is You Don't Have to Get Ready If You Stay Ready. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. It's tonight, so I recognize it's not the morning. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. How, just in your life, as you experience your life, how aware are you and conscious of you that you're in a battle? You are a good soldier of Jesus Christ, but you also have enemies that are working against you. This evening, I want to talk to you guys about, I think, what are the two biggest tactics, the two biggest tricks, the two biggest strategies that the enemy and the world and your flesh want to pit against you. They work like the carrot and the stick, right? The carrot and the stick. Everybody's familiar with that analogy. Right? You have the donkey, and there's two ways. You can dangle a carrot in front of him, and he'll keep going until you can get the carrot, and then when he stops, you whip him, right? It's a stick. You get him. One is a promise of something good, and one is, please don't hurt me anymore. I think the devil uses those two things to try to distract us. A distraction, so here's the two things, distraction and intimidation. These are, I think, the two large category tricks, strategies that the enemy uses against us. Distraction and intimidation. I just want to say real quick, I should have said this in the beginning, but if you have the app, our notes tonight for tonight's message are on the app, and so if you want to take notes or follow along, you can open up your app and do that too. Distraction, intimidation. Distraction is the carrot. As long as you can be pacified by playing by the rules, pursuing goals that are acceptable by the world, you'll be left alone. You'll be okay. The devil is all too happy to let you go on a primrose path of just easy sloping into hell. Never any problems, never any existential threats that might wake you up to the realities of the world. He'll let you just go on that. But Jesus said, narrow is the gate that leads to life, and there's few who find it. Broad is the way that leads to destruction, there's many who go by it. The idea being, man, it's difficult. Narrow and difficult is the way that leads to life. It's hard to stay on that path. The one to hell, it's broad and easy, soft under your feet. Intimidation is the stick. If you're not going to go along with the program, then you'll be made to suffer. And the consequences are used to scare you into submission, to scare you into stopping doing what God has for you in your life. Let's do the first one, distraction. Remember, Apostle Paul tells Timothy, suffer as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Don't involve yourself in the affairs of this world. You involve yourselves in the mission that God has for you, to please the one who's enlisted you. But Jesus tells a parable in Luke 12 about a different man. He told a parable saying, the land of a rich man was very productive. And he began reasoning to himself, saying, what shall I do since I have no place to store my crops? And he said, this is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store up all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your soul is required of you. And now who will own what you have prepared? So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. On the surface, it might be easy to think that this parable is about tithing. And sometimes we have this idea about giving, and even just bringing up giving in church. Some people kind of recoil at that, right? Here it goes, pastor's after my money. I just want to disabuse you of your fears. This is not about money. God doesn't need your money. He's got all the money. He has a billion different ways to take your money from you, okay? If he wanted your money, he could get it. Any time, any way, okay? This is not about you making sure you give God his share. This is about you having your priorities of your life in the wrong place. This man was only thinking about himself. He was thinking about what's good for him, what's right for him, but he was not being rich towards God. He was not orienting his life towards the Lord. He wasn't saying, God, I want to please you. I want to obey you. I want to please the one who enlisted me. He's saying, how can I take it easy? How can I relax? How can I have the good life? I can eat, drink, and be merry. Just relax and not have to worry about any of this stuff. We live in an unfathomably wealthy and comfortable time. We control so many things that never could have been controlled in the past. We have freezers, okay? Remember, dude, back in the day, like these guys who came over here in the Mayflower and stuff, right? They had to eat beef jerky, right? Because they just salt meat and dry it out and try to make it last. We have a freezer. I have meat that's been in my freezer for 3 years. I'm going to eat it. I'm confident it's still going to be good. I mean, how radical is that? I mean, we have insurance of every possible type. You can go to the doctor and you can get an MRI and find out what's happening inside your body without cutting you open and looking for a lot of things. They can do genetic tests on you. Nobody could ever do that before. You used to go to the witch doctor and be like, I feel like I'm bloated. It hurts right here. And he's like, I don't know. You go to the Museum of Man, and they have the skulls with the holes punched in them, right, from people who had really bad migraines. They used to take a sharp chisel and just bam, 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 knock a hole in your head. Ironically, it worked sometimes. It caused some other problems, but it would actually release sometimes when you have a hematoma, it released some of the pressure that was in there. But dude, how great is it that, we can go to the doctor and he can say, put you in this tube and oh, here's your problem. Here's what's going on. You got cancer. How great is that? How great is it to know? It's so funny because I'm 45, and I'd say half the guys in this room are probably older than me. And so when I say this, working with kids all the time, it's like, dude, you don't know anything what it's like, right? You have no idea what it was like to go to the library and go to the card catalog and have to learn the Dewey Decimal System and find dude, you just literally just this. Oh yeah, Haniro Makamoto, he was the 28 years of it. Yeah, you know how hard that information was to come by back in the day? You didn't get to know that. You didn't get to just look that up when you were working on a sermon. No, dude, when I was a kid, you used to have to watch commercials. You had to wait for your TV show to come on at the right time. If you weren't there, they started it anyways. They didn't care. Now, dude, you watch every season possible. No commercials, just sitting there in your... and I don't know that we're better off for it. There's so much ease, so much comfort, so much distraction. Do you guys remember that movie WALL-E? Right? You guys remember this scene of where the people were in WALL-E? I think there's a picture. I took a picture of it. Remember these guys? We're 5 minutes away from this right here. Living in a big spaceship with some hologram in front of us, just drinking whatever they're drinking. They can't even walk, right? Just on chairs that take us wherever we want to go. We're not better off for it. There's some softness that's happened. There's some weakness that's entered in that we just accept it. You can take the picture down. I feel bad looking at it. Peace can make you soft. Comfort can make you lazy. Having the wrong goal will lead you to the wrong place. Greediness will shrink your soul. As we just feed ourselves just what I want, what's good for me, all that stuff, it ruins you. It will rot your soul. We need to concern ourselves with what is the mission? What has God called me to do? What's the work God put me here for? How do I focus on that? How do I clear the deck of all the distractions, of all the bull crap that I have in my life? How do I get rid of it so I can focus on what actually matters? That was this man's problem. That was the rich man's problem. He didn't recognize, dude, your soul is required of you this very night. And now you're going to stand before a living God who put you here for a mission, and you're going to have nothing to show him. And your big barns, guess what? He's not impressed. He gave them to somebody else. But what did you do with what he gave you? What did you do with the mission that he called you to? And that's a word for probably every single dude in here. I know it's a word for me. Dude, am I letting myself get distracted? Am I letting myself take my eyes off the prize and put it on some other stuff? Am I losing sight of what it is that God has called me to? Seeking that out? Giving my life to it? And man, as long as you're willing to take that, the world will let you keep going. You want to just have an easy life? Guess what? You can have it. You might get sick. I'm not saying you're not going to have any problems, but you could have it if you want an easy life. But God has said, no, suffer with me as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. But here's just what I want to say. If you decide to go that route, if you say, okay, Jesus, I say yes to you. That's what this deal was when I got saved, when I gave my life to you. It really meant I give my life to you. You get to do what you want with it. And so now I'm on mission. You do that, you just need to know that here comes the stick. Okay? You didn't take the carrot? Okay, well, guess what? The devil, the world, and your flesh was now going to use the stick on you. Most of you guys, many of you guys know, we had a youth benefit dinner, and we auctioned off some stuff this last year, and one of the things they auctioned off was a dog, and these guys are laughing. They're the ones who know the story. I'm the auctioneer, and so I say, hey, who would like to buy this dog? It's a purebred English lab. It's worth $2,500, and we're going to start the bidding at $500. Do I hear $500? $500. Not nobody. Okay. The breeder is right there. She knows what she has. She could sell this dog for $2,500 and just give the church the money, but she's not. She's donating this, and nobody wants the dog for $500. So I'm sweating. I'm trying to, hey, look how beautiful this dog is. It's an amazing dog. Okay. As you know, this is hard for me because I don't like dogs. Okay. I'm not a pet person. I like to be friends with humans. I don't need an animal to be friends with. And so I'm up there it's terrible. It's not going well. And my neighbor who I brought is my friend. I invited him to the dinner. He goes, I'll bid $2,000 for you to take the dog. Anybody else? Any other offers on the table? Guy goes up in the front. Mark Bailey. He goes, yeah, I'll bid $2,400 for you to take the dog. Another guy in the back, Chris George. I'll pay $2,600 for you to take the dog. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do, right? I'm like, my wife's out of town. I don't have permission to get a dog. First, I don't need permission to get a dog. You guys all know that, right? That was like a joke that I just said right there. Anyways, long story short, I get stuck with this dog, okay? This free dog who has since then caused hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars in damage in my house, okay? He's a puppy. Chewed on everything, bit up everything, destroyed it, chewed a hole in my leather couch. Like, this dog is a piece of trash. And when it rains, it pours. So just this last month, my daughters had a birthday. They have birthdays the same month, both in September. Dad, please, can we get a bunny? Please, can we get a bunny? Please, can we get a bunny? Okay? We have a family here at church who's friends with us who raises rabbits for meat, okay? They're like, we'll give you 2 bunnies for your daughters, right? So I got free bunnies, right? Free, again, bunnies. Now, the problem is, real quick, is the bunnies are in this little cage that was not free. I had to buy that. And the bunnies and the dog, like the dog has a different, he's like a big, he's a big dog. He's like a heavy, strong dog. And like when he runs, it sounds like a war horse. I don't know how to describe it to you, but it's a powerful dog, okay? And but he's just all fun and laughing and jumping on, getting everything dirty, disgusting. But these bunnies, when he sees these bunnies, it turns into, there's something animalistic happens to him. He's locked in. He wants to eat these bunnies bad, okay? And so he'll go over their cage and he'll like stick his snout in their cage, and like the metal is bending in. I mean, it's a real Cujo situation here. The problem is that if you don't know this about rabbits, the problem is that rabbits can die of fear. Rabbits are really sensitive. They have, like, when you see a rabbit in the wilderness, they run, right? They're super fast. That's their escape mechanism. So they don't have any fight or flight. They just have flight, okay? So flight is their thing. But you put them in a little cage, there's no flight, right? And so now they're stuck. So their thing is like, maybe the dog won't see me now, right? The dog sees them, okay? The dog sees nothing else except for them, right? He wants to bite them. So I'm afraid these bunnies are going to die because just the stress, what happens is they're safe, but they don't get bit, but they die of a heart attack. You know, a lot of times intimidation can work like that. Fear can work like that. Intimidation can freeze you. Intimidation can make you make the wrong choice because you're afraid that something bad's going to happen to you, and so you allow yourself to be intimidated. In the book of Numbers 13, we get the story where God has led the people out of Egypt, out of slavery in Egypt, and he wants them to go into the promised land. And so Moses, as their leader, he says, I want to select one guy from every tribe. And so there's 12 tribes. I want to send 12 guys into the promised land to just scout out and see, man, what's the best plan of attack here? And so, what do we get ourselves into? It says that the spies come back and they give a report. In verse 25, it says, when they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days, they proceeded to come to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness at Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them all, to the congregation, and they showed them the fruit of the land. And thus they told them and said, we went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey. This is its fruit. This is the promised land that God had given them. This is where God wanted them to give them as an inheritance for his people. What he had promised to Abraham, what he had promised to Jacob, what he had promised to Isaac. It says, nevertheless, though, the people who live in the land are strong, and their cities are fortified and very large. And moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak. Say the descendants of Anak. Say the descendants of Anak. We're going to come back to that. The descendants of Anak were there. Amalek is living in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country, and the Canaanites are living by the sea and by the side of the Jordan. Then Caleb, one of the 12, he quieted the people down before Moses, and he said, we should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we will surely overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they're too strong for us. So they gave out the sons of Israel a bad report from the land which they spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone and spying out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom he saw in it are men of great size. There also we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak. Say the sons of Anak. The sons of Anak are part of the Nephilim. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. And so the people, they froze up. They didn't go. The intimidation got to them. The intimidation got to the 10 of the 12 spies, and that report got to the people, and the people said, no, we're just slave people. We don't have any weapons of war. We don't have any chariots. We don't have any horsemen. We're coming out of slavery. We can't go and take these cities. And Caleb and Joshua are like, let's go. The Lord is going to give it to us. He's promised us. Surely we can take them out. People say, no, it's too scary. It's too dangerous. It's intimidation. They were intimidated. Intimidation will keep you from what God has for you. So God decreed that they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years until every single person from that generation would die off because they lacked the courage, they lacked the faith, the trust in God to go do the mission. And he said, okay, I'm going to fulfill my promise. I'm going to have a people for my own pleasure, and they're going to inherit the promised land, but it's not going to be you guys. It's not going to be you adults at this time. It's going to be your kids, and I'm going to let you guys die off so your kids and your grandkids are the ones who are going to go and inherit it, except for two people, except for those two spies who are faithful, except for Joshua and Caleb. And then we get this story in Joshua 14. Moses has died. The people are now going to the promised land. It's the time when Caleb comes to Joshua and he says, it's time for me to go inherit my part. Here's what he says. The sons of Judah drew near to Joshua in Gilgal. And Caleb, the son of the Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, you know the word which the Lord spoke to Moses, the man of God, concerning you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. When he went to spy out the land, he was 40. And I brought word back to him as it was in my heart, and I said, let's do it. Nevertheless, my brethren who went up with me made the heart of the people melt with fear. But I followed the Lord my God fully. So Moses swore on that day, saying, surely the land on which your foot has trodden will be an inheritance to you and to your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God fully. Now behold, the Lord has let me live just as he spoke these 45 years. How old is he now? He's 85. He was 40, and the Lord, now it's 45 years later, and it's his time to go inherit his part of the promised land. From that time, the Lord spoke his word to Moses when Israel walked in the wilderness, and behold, I am 85 years old today, and I'm still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, so my strength is now, for war and for going out and for coming in. Now then, give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day that the Anakim were there, the great fortified cities. Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I will drive them out as the Lord has spoken. There's just three awesome parts of this story that are awesome. At least three. The first is this, is that Caleb's 85, and he's still ready. 85 years old, and he's still on mission. Listen, this is maybe a word for some people in here. I'm as strong now as I was then. I'm as capable of war then as I am now. You were not made to spend the last 25 years of your life watching TV on a couch. You were made to go out on your shield. And so some of you guys are in the age demographic I'm talking to. Okay, some of you guys are retired. And we have been sold a lie all our lives. And this goes back to the first thing, distraction, the first tool of the enemy, distraction. We've been sold a lie all our lives that work hard, and then you get to the end of your life and you won't have to work hard. You can just take it easy. I'm not talking about slowing down. I'm not talking that every man in here needs to say, like Caleb, I'm 85 and I'm just as strong as I was when I was 40. But you better be on the mission that God has given you, because the mission doesn't end until you go home to be with the Lord. The mission is not over. And this is not just for the older guys, because every guy in here should be thinking about, what does the next 20 years of my life look like? What does the next 50 years of my life look like? What am I striving for? What am I working for? And if your whole confidence is in your 401k, man, if I can just get to retirement age. I've heard so many guys, man, if I can just pay off my house and I can retire, buy that RV and we just travel the land. It's a wicked idea. It's a wicked idea. God has called you to a mission. He's called you to support. I recognize, dude, as you get older, I just got my butt whooped by this kid out here. I recognize as you get older, you slow down, some things change. That's okay. Just so you know, I'm gonna say I did get my butt whooped. I'm not gonna try to take that back. I also got my butt whooped in the chess championship. I was in the chess tournament. I came in second. This young man right here, high schooler right there. Yeah, you stand up real quick. Stand up. This guy, the chess phenom, yeah. So when I said I got my butt whooped out there, I saw him look at his dad and kind of laugh. Like, I got him. I was talking about something else, okay? Anyways, got my butt whooped twice tonight. But look, God has a purpose for your life. He has a purpose for the mission of your life, and we need to be focused on that and pursuing that and saying, God, I want to do that no matter what. So the fact that he's 85 and he still says, I'm ready. The second thing is that imagine Caleb during those 40 years. Those 40 years of just going in circles in the wilderness, circles in the desert. And everybody else is like, man, this is hard. This is a hard life. The weather, the climate, we're not settled. It's difficult. And what's Caleb doing? Caleb's just push-ups, right? He's just out there with his sword, thrust, parry, right? I mean, the dude is just training. He's just out keeping himself sharp, keeping himself ready, because he believes the day's going to come when the Lord's going to open opportunity. Now, listen. Our mission, most of us, is not to go kill people, okay? Not yet, not right now. Maybe that day comes. I don't know. But here's my point, though. Look, Caleb had lots of opportunities to challenge his wife, to lead his home, to raise his kids, to challenge his kids. His kids later on in the story, if you continue to read it, are awesome too. They're like going out and taking heads of giants and stuff. But he's doing godly things. He's got his focus. And he's ready. And he's ready when the Lord opens that big door for him, he's ready to walk through it. He's in the right spot because he put himself in the right spot when the Lord said go, he was ready. That's right. He didn't have to go get ready. He was prepared to what God had called him for because he had his eye on the prize. He was focused on what it was that God had called him to. And the third thing is just what he asks for. It's time he gets called up before Joshua. He says it's time for the allotment. They're giving out the different tribes, the different parts. And he says, you remember that part that Moses promised me on the day? He said, every area of my foot tribe, the area I went to spy out, he said, he'll give it to me. And I want to remind you what that area was. It was the hill country where the sons of Anak were, the giants, the Nephilim, the ones who were the baddest soldiers, the ones who were those monsters with the huge fortified cities. Joshua, would you give that place to me? That's the one I want. I don't want some easy place where I'm not asking for. I want the biggest and the baddest, and that's where I want you to send me because I think I love how he says it too. He says, perhaps the Lord will give them to me and will fulfill his promise. He's confident. He's still believing. That same faith I had then at 85 years old, I know I have that same faith now. And so give me the biggest. And here's part of what the reality is. Man, I remember this Bible study when I was a little kid. I'll never forget. They said, how do you spell faith? R-I-S-K. There is something basic about that the way that you live for God is you take a risk. And guess what? Anything God is going to call you to that requires faith is going to be risky. It's going to require you putting something on the line, you having skin in the game, you playing with your own money, you playing with your own life, you putting that out there. And here's the day for Caleb. He says, I'm all in. Give me the biggest and the baddest. That's where I want to go. And as we survey the world and we survey all the enemies and all the intimidation and all the ways that they want to beat men down, all the ways they want to try to defame our God, they want to speak ill of Christians, they want to put the church down. What our mind should be is, give me the biggest one. I'm going after them. Give me your best. I'm going to slay him. And then Caleb does it. He goes in there and he slays the giants. And he has this amazing victory, and it's just the exclamation point on the end of what God was doing to fulfill. And that's the kind of attitude, that's the kind of mentality that God loves. I'm not falling for your intimidation. The world will want to shut you down, want to reject you, want to keep you silent. This weekend at church, I'm going to be talking about the value of men. Why we as a church want to value men. Why we as a church want to encourage men. Why we as a church want to strengthen men. Why we as a church want to put the men at the front. Say, look, we rise or we fall. We live or we die as a church with how our men are. That's how a church needs, that's how the church of God needs to function. For too long, the church has been a church of women. That's not the kind of church we want to have. One of our churches is led by men, with men who are willing to risk it, who are willing in their life, in the area that God has called them to, they're willing to go out and be on mission. Neil and I just went to a conference, and one of the guys, it was actually Charlie Kirk, which surprised me. He said something really profound. He said, man, one of the reasons he started TP USA Faith, I want to invite the band out here. So one of the reasons I started TP USA Faith is that when COVID came, I thought the church is going to stand up. This is the moment the church has been waiting for. This is the opportunity. This is the open door for the church to step in and say, no, we're not shutting down. We're not going to be afraid. We're going to lead. We're going to speak into the people have a fear of death, a fear of getting sick, a fear of losing their business, existential crisis. This is the moment the church has been waiting for to step in. And he said he was so disappointed with how the church backed down. And I just thought, man, I want to remember that, because that's not the last open door that's coming our way. God is going to give us some opportunities. God is going to give us some doors, some missions that he wants us to accomplish. This is as a group, okay? As the church. He's going to give you individually a mission that he wants you to accomplish. And the question is, are you going to be ready when the door opens? Because you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. If you're living your life in such a way that says, man, I'm not getting distracted, I'm not taking my eye off the ball, and I'm not falling, I'm not going to be quiet because you say to back down. I'm not going to fall for the intimidation of the world. My trust is in Jesus. My confidence and my hope is in him. I love what it says in Luke 12:47. I'd never noticed this before. This is one of my favorite verses. He says, I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that have no more that they can do. All they can do is kill you. But I will warn you of whom you should fear. Fear the one who, after he is killed, has authority to cast you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. It's just such a clarifying. All they can do is kill you. They just beat you and maim you, cut off some parts, and you die. Big whoop. Who you should really be afraid of is the one who, after he's killed you, can cast you into hell. Dude, that just clarifies everything. He's the boss. He's in charge, right? But it's also like a kind of a mean way of making your point, right? It's kind of an aggressive, yeah, they could kill you, but I'll kill you and put you in hell. Right? It's oh, all right, that feels serious. What I never noticed before is the verse that comes right after. Fear the one who, after he's killed you, has authority to cast you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 cents? Yet not one of them is forgotten before God. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, for you are more valuable than many sparrows. Dude, behold the kindness and the severity of our God. Right? He is a straight up warrior. He is the most terrifying enemy that you do not want to meet him as an enemy. And he is the most loving God, full of mercy and loving kindness. Fear the one who can cast you into hell after he's killed you. But also, He has every hair of your head numbered. You're so much value. You're so valuable to him. He loves you. Dude, that's like the nature of who God is. It's powerful and strong. That's the kind of men we want to be. I'm capable of power. I'm using it against the enemies of my king. I'm using it in the service of my king. I'm using that strength that he's given me. I'm using that power that he's given me. And yet I'm capable of tenderness and loving kindness just like him. I want to honor the Lord. I want to submit myself to him. I want to humble myself. I want to seek him. So here's my challenge to you. I want to challenge you. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep yourself in fighting trim. Have you taken yourself out of the game? Have you taken your eye off the ball? Have you allowed distraction into your life? Are there passions, hobbies, pursuits that take up too much of your mind or your heart? Are you too concerned about your fantasy football team or your 401k or the next date you're going to go on or closing the next deal? Are you numbing yourself with meaningless distractions, movies, video games, social media? Have you fallen for the carrot? Okay, and just the answer is yes for all of us. It's just how much of a correction do you need to make? It might be a small correction, it might be a big correction. Let's do it. Let's make that correction. Let's recenter ourselves on the Lord tonight. I mean, I wonder if tonight, I'm not going to even have an altar call or whatever. We're going to minister to some guys, but I wonder if tonight, if you would just on your own, just say, God, I'm recentering myself on you. I'm putting my eyes back on you. And whatever that means, whatever I got to move off the table, whatever I got to get out of the way, I'm focusing on you. And what about the stick? Have you allowed yourself to be intimidated? Do you feel hopeless? Are you discouraged? Do you care too much about what other people think? Are you trying not to offend people? Have you been coasting, unaware of the spiritual battle, unengaged? Have you abandoned your post to pursue other things? Have you given up? I want to call you back to the battle. There's a line. Let's stand up. Let's worship the Lord. There's a line in Lord of the Rings where he talks about the Rohan. It says that they sang as they slew. It's that picture of the Rohan, the riders of Rohan when they're coming down the mountain, they're going towards the orcs. It says as the battle was heated and they're slaying orcs, they were singing songs. I love that. That's who God has called us to be. He's called us to be men who are focused on the prize, who are glorious and excited to be in the battle, to be about the mission. So we're going to worship the Lord. We don't have a lot of time. We're going to end at 9:30 tonight, so we have 7 minutes left. But as we worship, I want to invite you, come up here to the front. We have home group pastors. We have pastors on staff. They would love to pray for you. So all you got to do is you come here and stand. We're going to pray. We're going to ask God would fill you with the Holy Spirit, that he'd empower you to live for him, that he'd set you back on mission, whatever it is. So don't be embarrassed. Don't be shy. We're going to open this up. If you want to get prayer, come down here and stand, and we would love to pray for you.